First thing we're going to do is we're going to watch Moreland tell us if Throne and Liberty will succeed in the West. Yeah, this is a throwback. Moreland used to be one of the top content creators for Black Desert before he quit the game. I believe his, I'm quitting the game video is probably the most legendary in history for Black Desert. Yeah, he's an OG. So it looks like he's going to come over and play Throne and Liberty. I don't know when this video came out. 13 hours ago. Looks like he's going to play Throne and Liberty too. So I respect his analysis a tremendous amount. It says, will Throne and Liberty succeed in the West? It's kind of a long video, but we have a decent amount of time.
Released last year in Korea with a pretty overwhelmingly negative response. Most reviewers were trashing it as a mobile game that was trying to disguise itself to PC players, and in response, NCSoft started to make some changes such as removing auto combat or adding some movement to your basic attacks. But even as recently as July, the North American beta that we all got,
I have to give Throne and Liberty a tremendous amount of credit. When it first released in beta in Korea, and we saw the first gameplay, and it was like that auto farm garbage. I mean, look how far the game has come since that moment. You know what I mean? And you don't get this far without listening to your player base and going, okay, yeah, we need to rework this. You know what I mean? And so you got to give him credit on that.
To play.
Have you lost weight? You look like you lost a bunch of weight. Don't tell anybody. Half of my persona, it's sneaking up on them. I'm planning on doing a Nikado avocado bit in about 3 months. I'm just going to surprise people. One day, just suddenly I'm going to stand up and people are going to be like, what the f***? Wait, he's not fat.
Still felt pretty stale, uninteresting, and unfinished. So if you had asked me even 2 months ago if this game had a shot in the West, I would say no, dead on arrival. However, right after that mediocre NA beta test ended, Throne released an update in Korea that so completely overhauled the game, they have gotten me to completely change my mind. I ended up playing the Korean version for a month straight, and my verdict now is that I am...
Okay, before he says his verdict, I will admit, over the last 2 days...
Virtualgf_Anna just resubscribed for 4 months. We love Baldman Blue Squad Awooga.
I have been captivated by it. I think that the game is amazing because I understand why some people still say it's shit, and it's because Zethian earlier on his stream actually explained it perfectly, so I'm just going to steal what he said. He said that a lot of Black Desert players get spoiled by Black Desert's combat, and since that's the first MMO that they've ever played, they don't think that every other MMO basically has to measure up on combat, or they don't even consider it as a game. I am able to look past the fact that the combat is worse than BDO's and see the systems and the potential that the game has and be captivated by the open world again. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very excited about the game. I've had a tremendous amount of fun the last 2 days. Yeah, the combat's a little worse, but honestly, it's kind of nice to have the combat be a little bit simpler. So
I'm seriously excited for the NA launch of this game. So let's talk about why this game is suddenly so good, but also things that they're still doing wrong, and make some overall predictions about how Throne is going to do in the West.
Birthday 365 cheer Dex 100. I'm new here, but here's 1 cent.
And as you can see, I mean, the abilities have a bit of a punch to them, so they kind of feel good to use. But overall, I'm kind of just using my abilities in a predictable order here. There's not a lot of interesting interactions between the skills or interesting combos or anything like that. I kind of just use the skills as they come up in a particular order, and there's not a whole lot of thought or strategy or interesting dynamics at play here. Now, if we fast forward to the Korean version, we have a new system called skill specialization.
I'll be honest, I really like the way they have all this laid out. It's really big. It's really there's a lot of diversity in the game, but even for me, who is just jumping into it as a new player, I grasped it relatively quickly, and as I was able to understand the systems. But it's complex enough that long term, bro, there's so many different combinations that you can do stuff with, and so many ways you can specialize your build that I just think it's an incredible way to design an MMO,
Which completely overhaul.
It's just, and half of that, I'll admit, half of that is that for the last 3 years, it's been
Birthday 365 cheer Dex 300. Have you heard the next 3 cents they're rolling out of my pockets?
Oh my god. build Dead God. More Devos. Buy Deboreka's online. Like that's been my build path for the last like 3-4 years. You know what I mean? And like now that I have an opportunity to play an MMO that has like 200 or more build paths available, like I'm really excited, and it's got graphics that are on par with BDO, which is exciting to me because I love good graphics. And like, yeah, like, and then it's a shot calling game, you know what I mean? And I'm a shot caller. Like that's like a thing, you know what I mean? That's what I got famous for in the first place. Like I'm super amped up.
Game. So we now have 3 to 5 adjustments that we can make to every ability that we use. And so I'm going to start off here by just kind of showing you guys the old basic fireball before the specialization. Pretty standard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard about this. I used pre-15. You don't get to use weapon specializations, as I learned the last 2 days doing like the creator event thing. And not being able to move while casting and like being locked in place is like the worst feeling in the world. I thought that was dumb. But then I got the skill specialization, and now I can move while casting it, and the game feels like way better. It's like an infinite, it's like night and day. It's literally night and day.
Cast time, if I move, it gets canceled, so I have to stay put. I have to wait for the spell to go off. It can proc an extra fireball, and so if I cast that, I'd have to stay there and stand still again to get a second one off. But now if we go to skill specialization, with this skill I can change it to be a chunkier fireball that takes a little bit longer to charge, or I can change it to be an instant fireball and then I don't have a cast time at all.
Every time.
So both of those are already interesting choices, but then in addition to that, I can take this able to move. I like able to move a lot with focus fire.
Well, okay, well, I take it back. Able to move every time. But those two, the options are good, but you have to be able to move, bro. You gotta.
Because what we're going to be able to do now is charge up an even bigger fire.
I probably won't take the instant fireball. As long as I'm able to move while casting it, I'll take the other one. Mainly because I'm going staff wand. I understand I changed, guys. I'm a flip-flopper. I was staff dagger the past 2 days, and then now I'm staff wand. But I'm fairly certain that staff wand only has like 4 damage skills, maybe 5. Like
fireball, which this thing just feels really good to use compared to the old one. But I can also move around a bit while I'm casting it, right?
As long as I can
move.
So
that comes in handy, especially like in dungeons when I need to adjust a little bit to get out of a boss mechanic or something.
But
it also just makes the skill feel a little bit better, a little bit more fluid. And a ton of these skills have really high impactful choices like that. This ice spell, I can make this so that it goes across the ground, it can hit multiple targets, or I can make it so that it focuses on a single target and does a bunch more damage. This meteor spell, something similar. I can have one big meteor that's really good for PvP when you're hitting multiple targets, or I can have a bunch of little meteors that are, it's kind of the...
Yeah, I think in PvP, in most cases, guys, if you don't know what to spec into, as a general rule, at least it was this way in Black Desert. I'm assuming it's going to be this way in Throne of Liberty. All that really matters for like large scale PvP is burst damage. Burst damage. So if there's ever a choice between, oh, you can fire about a bunch of these and do more damage over time, or doing the burst damage, you want the burst damage in general.
Opposite, it's really good for like PvE scenarios where I want to hit a boss multiple times with the same ability. And in addition to just the sheer variety that this system adds, so that it makes it so that my mage
mods, please pin the server I'm going to be on today, Chernobug.
Playstyle is very different from other people's mage playstyles. In addition to just the sheer variety, it also just makes the game feel better. It makes the combat feel a lot more alive, a lot more dynamic. There's a lot more decisions that I'm making. There's a lot more interesting combos that are now available, and it feels a lot better when you perform well in PvE. Now,
it does feel a tremendous amount better, and I can say that because like before I hit 15, like yesterday, I was like, damn, man, this combat is just, it's just so much worse. And then after 15, it was like, oh, so much better. Now I can actually spec into stuff. It felt so much better.
Speaking of PvE, I wanted to talk about this before we get into PvP, because the game has mostly been depicted as a PvP game, and that's what I was going into it expecting. So when I ran dungeons in this game, I wasn't doing it expecting to enjoy the dungeons. I was doing it so that I could get better gear, so that I could be stronger in PvP. And the tier 1 dungeons, the original dungeons that kind of came with the initial launch of the game, are pretty boring, but the recent dungeons that they added, the tier 2 dungeons, are some of the most fun content that I've ever done in an MMO. Like, they're accessible enough that you can figure out the mechanics without having to watch a guide, but they're challenging enough so that, even if you do watch a guide, even if you do figure the dungeon out, they still keep you on your toes. You can gradually progress as your gear gets better, and some of the mechanics you'll be able to skip, or you'll be able to kind of ignore them. But some of the mechanics you can't. Some of them you're still going to have to do, and so you simultaneously feel yourself progressing through these dungeons, but they also keep you on your toes, which keeps it from just being this kind of like stale clockwork thing that you're just knocking out repetitively. And then on top of that, they also added a challenge dungeon system, so that when you're done with your regular dungeon runs, you can do kind of like a Mythic Plus version of the dungeons where they get harder and harder. And this isn't just HP and damage scaling, this is new mechanics as well. And same thing, as we progress through these, all the new mechanics that they added, I was pretty impressed with just about every single one of them.
I'm confused. Which geometric shape am I supposed to be running in? Is this like a circle? Wait, is this more of a triangle situation? Rhombus? I was thinking, I like parallelograms personally. You know what I mean? Like,
of them. I mean, the tier 2 dungeons in this game are genuinely some of the most fun I've ever had PvEing in any game, and that was me going into it again with no expectations at all. I was just like,
I'm wondering how these dungeons are going to stack up to, well, let's be honest, the guild boss blitz in BDO. It's going to beat that. It's going to beat that. That ain't a question. I'm wondering, since I'm playing Guild Wars 2 at the same time, if it's going to stack up with Guild Wars 2, you know what I mean?
Grinding.
I'm hoping it's better than Guild Wars 2 because, it's a newer game.
Get these done so we can get back to the good stuff, right? But
It's
I
an
actually ended up
octagon?
really
All right,
enjoying
bet.
the PvE and really enjoying doing these challenge runs, and it became like a staple part of the content that me and my core group of friends were enjoying playing together. As far as like the grinding portion of the game, there is both good and bad. The main, most rewarding grinding that you're going to do is called Abyssal Dungeons. And so those are open world dungeons that are non-instanced, where everyone can go in at the same time. At nighttime, these dungeons become PvP, and that can be very fun. However,
Whoa. So, wait, is there a reward then? So, wait, at nighttime, I'm confused. Chat. If you can be PvP'd in the dungeon at nighttime, first of all, that's cool. Second of all, do you get more rewards since there's like a higher risk? Or is it no? We're almost there. We are, Skip. We are almost there. The reward is that there aren't a bunch of roaches griefing your mobs. Okay. All right, fair enough.
Daytime, which is like 75% of the time or more, there is no PvP, and so because of the lack of density in these dungeons, I found that oftentimes there were too many people there, and we were all kind of just like griefing each other trying to get tags. It wasn't that enjoyable of an experience.
Okay, so this is like seasonal servers against normal servers. I apologize. Normal servers are now PvE servers in Black Desert. Normal servers versus Arsha.
So I'm really hoping that they add some more density here, or add more of these dungeons in general. I know that even in the latest level 55 update, they've added some more of these dungeons, but my concern is that people are just going to move from the 50 dungeons to the 55 dungeons. So it's not really more content, it's just different content, and that means it's going to have the same density problem. But I haven't seen these new dungeons, so maybe they do have more density there. I'm hopeful that that's a problem that gets solved. But, right now...
Is anyone else just excited to try a dungeon? I've never gotten to do a dungeon before. Black Desert could never.
It really just feels like you're kind of griefing each other. It even
This is my
feels like
first
you're
time, bro.
throwing a bit if you go down there with a group, because if you go into a dungeon and there's already people there, usually you can just join their group, and then that'll be a lot more smooth than if you bring 5 of your own friends, and now you're making it even more crowded and you're bringing even more people that are competing for tags. So I don't like how it sort of punishes you for bringing your own friends. Now, some of the other PvE content, there's something called Tatel's Tower, where you can climb, right now, 20 floors of dungeons. This was super fun, but...
Hold up. So they already have like a infinite boss dungeon? Well, I guess it's not infinite, but like a scaling, like you just beat one, go to the next one, beat one, go to the next one, beat one, go to the next one. Bro, Black Desert has been promising this for like 3 years. On release. Have it on release. This is insane.
They're only one-time dungeons, and it's very easy to kind of like blow past some of these without realizing it. So if you're playing really actively and you're gearing and you forget about these dungeons for a bit and then you come and do them, a lot of them are just very easy and they don't end up challenging you. But I do think there is a ton of potential here. If they add challenge modes for these, the way that they've added challenge mode for the tier 2 dungeons, I think that a lot of these fights could be a lot of fun. Like a few.
Can I ask a petty question? This little thing right here next to your name, can you get rid of that? That's really annoying. I don't mind the white icon here, but like this is really annoying. You can get rid of that? Okay, good.
Two of these are very memorable and very enjoyable.
I think that in large scale PvP I'd probably use it, but
if the difficulty is kind of right and you're not, you know, over gearing it too
that
much.
way I know where I am.
So I think there is a ton of potential here, although
You can hide your name. Well, I don't want to hide my name. I just want to hide that particular thing. I don't want to hide, like, I want my name and the health bar. I just don't want that thing there.
Now,
is that staff bow? Could be staff dagger.
Kind of just one and done, and so there's not a lot of content.
He's got the same skills I was using. It kind of looks like staff dagger.
Or at least I'm hopeful that there will be.
Staff dagger. I'm a professional. Veteran. He happens to be playing the same 2 weapons I played the last 2 days.
And then finally, there is something called contracts, which I think needs to basically just be completely reworked. They're sort of like dailies.
Daily quests?
You don't have to do them every day. You can bank them up for like 5 or 6 days and then do them all at once on the weekend. But they're basically just like little chores where you have to go and do mundane tasks out in the world, like interact with this item or, you know, kill these mobs that you wouldn't really otherwise be interested in killing. I find those to be kind of boring and repetitive daily chores that you know,
we hate chores.
Are never good in an
we
MMO,
hate chores
in my opinion, and so I think that needs to get just totally reworked at some point. And then
they didn't work in Lost Ark, they ain't gonna work here.
And lastly, there are PvE events and world bosses.
This is supposed to be the cool part, right?
Set schedule, so you can open up your map and find this schedule here. Honestly, I haven't been super impressed with either one of these from a PvE standpoint. We'll get into the PvP versions in just a second.
I was just saying the PvP is what we're interested in.
They're basically mob tagging contests to see like.
It's a loot pinata. Nobody cares. Like, you know, like it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's the PvP I'm interested in.
You know, who can get the most of whatever tokens. Some of them have a little bit of variety to them, but for the most part, it's kind of the same copy and paste formula. And if you're playing a melee build, you know, good luck. And then the field bosses, I think they're just kind of too easy. And this might be a result of playing the boosted server and having everyone gear up faster than normal. But even before everyone got gear, like even on the NA beta, I feel like the PvE bosses are kind of just a little bit undertuned, and you kind of just show up with a bunch of people and you zerg on them.
Especially when the game starts, the bosses are gonna feel way too easy, no question, because there's just way more people. There's just so many people that'll launch. It's just, if you're not there when the boss spawns, you ain't getting attacked.
Face roll them, and there's not a lot of mechanics to deal with, and they're kind of just big loot pinatas, which, you know, fair enough. But I think there's a lot more that they could do.
Bald people even use the same mannerisms
with both the events and the field bosses. PvP has been a major focus.
I will say that Morrowind overall is much more composed, calm, and generally a responsible adult than I am. It's not even a question.
It's enthroned from the
I'm a complete spaz.
Very start. So there are a ton of different PvP modes in this game. Everything from small scale dungeon.
This is me way hyped up on caffeine. See what I mean? This is like normal energy me, and I already am out. I have like 200% of your energy. Okay. When I actually get like giga hyped up and I'm like shot calling and stuff, you don't even want to know. I gotta be, chat's gotta have me at like 10% volume. I hate that I just used 10%. Now it's gonna get used all day. The other day I said, yo chat, if I have 10% attack speed over my opponent, like how much more is that gonna feel like I have? Is that like a super significant amount? And then chat just goes, yeah, it's about 10% more.
Open world dungeon fights to a 3v3 arena.
I don't know what I expected,
70 versus 70 instanced guild wars.
My chat is a bunch of Ameritards. Like,
then there are open worlds guild wars where as many different guilds can show up as you want. Guilds can ally other guilds to create zergs of up to 280 people, and then there will be PvP world bosses where all these different zergs will come together, and it's this huge brawl. Sometimes there's over 1,000 people showing up to the higher end field bosses, and
really,
when this happens, the performance in the game is really, really good.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I was like, please don't tell me it's terrible. Please don't tell me the performance is terrible. Oh, thank God. That's what we saw in the Siege yesterday and the day before. Well, not the day before. I got a DDoS attack. But like in Europe, the Siege looked really good. I was like, damn, bro, all effects are on. The graphics are at maximum. No one's playing in Minecraft quality. And everyone seems to be having a good time. Maybe a few crashes here or there. But like, it seems like it's not a PowerPoint presentation. Like, what are we like? This is so different than what I'm used to.
I had a little bit of lag, as you can kind of see here from the Siege footage, when there was, literally.
Do you know how difficult it'll be to upgrade weapon sets? I would say it probably, like, from what I've heard, it takes like 2 weeks to go from 0 to 100 on a weapon set. Oh, there's Alec right there. Poggers.
1,000 people nearby, but I think a lot of that honestly was just because I was playing on high ping on a Korean server. The game itself, in terms of FPS and performance, works pretty well, even with an absolute ton of people around. And so you've also got sieges that happen once a month. You've got a tax card event that happens right before the siege, where this is.
I love that he called it tax card. Yup. Yup. The funny thing is, the current generation of Black Desert Online doesn't even know that the game has a tax cart. That's where we're at. Okay. It used to be tax cart was like this big event that all the top siege guilds would go do, and everyone would fight over, and people were swapping and trying to do the battle notes for anyone. No, people don't even know that it exists anymore. Like, there's no one. I bet that the tax carts go almost uninterrupted except for the 2 or 3 players that hit them every week. It's insane.
Another open world event where the castle defenders try to protect the cart as it moves.
Tax card is bananas in this game. Well, I think they structured it a lot better. From my understanding, the tax cart, like the defenders of the region, have incentive to come defend the cart. And like they get immediately rewarded if the cart reaches its destination with its loot. In Black Desert, if the cart reaches its destination, okay, so let me explain this so that everybody understands what tax cart is. Basically, you have point A and point B, okay? So here's point A, here's point B. The tax cart starts at point A. In this case, we'll say Velia, and it runs to point B, which is Calpheon, okay? Along the way, if you hit the cart, basically the cart gets filled with market tax. So everyone that used the marketplace in Velia or in Balanos that particular week gave tax to the tax cart. And all of those taxes are loaded onto this cart and they're shipped over to Calpheon, right? If you hit the cart, it drops loot for you, okay? But it also flags you for PvP. So the idea is that the owners, the defenders of Calpheon Castle want to defend the cart because if the cart reaches its destination, you get more money in siege. Like you get more money for your territory, whatever. The problem with this is that it's not an immediate reward and you're not always guaranteed the castle. So in Black Desert, although, it's going from point A to point B, and yes, there's some incentive to defend the cart if you're the defenders of Calpheon Castle, you're not immediately rewarded for the task, A, and B, most of the time, you're not streaking the castle. Okay, there's no guarantee that you're going to streak the castle, which means if you defend the cart and then someone else takes the castle, you've essentially given them more money. You've given your opponent, your rival, more money. It just doesn't make sense. It's poorly designed. As far as I'm aware, in Throne and Liberty, when the cart is moving from point A to point B, the defenders of the cart are immediately rewarded when the cart reaches point B with its loot. This incentivizes people to come out and actually defend the cart and do the content.
Across the map, the rest of the server shows up and gangs up on the cart, gangs up on the players, and tries to pillage the loot. There are guilds and Dominion events that happen periodically, so it's like the regular events, except if it's a guild event.
I think large scale PvP systems in this game are hands down way better than Black Desert. The golems and how Siege is structured, and the different things you can do, I think it's just way stronger. Add on top of that, I think that the combat being less complex actually adds to the skill ceiling of Siege. So like you're more focused on working together as a unit, and there's more of a priority of working with other players than there is on making solo plays like there is in Black Desert. And I think that this is cool, and it adds to like guilds working together, right? Your guild wants to work together, your alliance wants to work together properly, and if you do that, you're rewarded much more than you are in BDO.
You are obviously teaming up with your guild. If it's a Dominion event, then you just get placed on a random green, blue, or red team, and then you fight against other players from the other teams. So there's kind of the guild version, and there's kind of just the random pickup version of that. My main problem with all of these things is that they just don't happen very often. So if we look at the schedule here, we can see some Dominion events happening or some guild PvP events. They happen at the same time. So these happen every 3 hours. And then when it comes to field bosses, these also happen every 3 hours.
Well, but wait, every 3 hours is like really often.
These events are only 30 minutes long. So at best, you have, 30 or 60 minutes of PvP out of every 3 hour chunk that's occurring.
That's a lot of PvP.
Same thing with open world PvP. The dungeons that you're going to be fighting people in, the abyssal dungeons, those are daytime for 2 hours, and then they're nighttime for 30 minutes. And often that 30-minute nighttime will happen at the same time as one of these events. So you're probably going to go to the event. You're probably not going to do the dungeon PvP because those things are going to overlap. And so your actual opportunities to PvP in the game are limited to 1/3 or less of the time that you're online. The only exception to that is the 3v3 arena, which is fun, but I mean, I don't want to do it for 2 hours straight while I'm waiting for the.
Okay, I'm actually curious on the 3v3 arena, and I was thinking about this as I was walking my dog yesterday night, or last night, I guess. I wonder how competitive the 3v3 arena is. I don't think it's quite as dynamic as Black Desert's PvP, but I feel like the 3v3 arena is probably really competitive. At least like as far as MMOs go, it's got to be reasonably competitive, right? So like a shoutcaster like myself who likes to put on tournaments is probably going to be eating, right? Can I make like custom lobbies and run tournaments? Like
the big guild wars and the events and the field bosses and everything else, right? And so I don't know, I feel like there needs to be at the very minimum probably some open world dungeons that are PvP 24/7 rather than just PvP for 30 minutes at night. And then
a classic Black Desert player at heart, he only wants to PvP all the time. He's like, this is the best PvE I've had in an MMO. Also, I just want a PvP.
Safe for the other 2 hours. On top of that, they have floated the idea of traditional battlegrounds where, like a Warsong Gulch or Arathi Basin type of thing where you can queue up and be put on a team and fight against another team. I think that would be really good.
I don't plan on paying to win at all in this game. Zero. None whatsoever. Okay, just to be clear to chat. I will probably buy skins and stuff. But
as well, the 3v3 arena is fun, so I'm sure like a 12 versus 12 battleground would be very fun as well. I don't know if that's confirmed though, or if that's just something.
Cosmetics killed visual progression in an MMO though. It's kind of a pity. I would generally agree. It used to be when you spawned into an MMO, you would just be like, damn, that guy looks really cool. I need to grind so that I can go get that gear, right? Or I need to go to the dungeon so I can go get that gear, whatever. But like the alternative is just having a lot of pay to win. And like, we don't want that. So like, I would rather have the visual aspect ruined and just give people the cosmetics that they want. You know what I mean? Like, also you can still make the dungeon stuff really cool. I don't really think that it's all that ruined. As long as you include like pay to win, or not pay to win cosmetics, but like really cool cash shop cosmetics alongside really cool cosmetics that you can only get in game, I think it's totally fine, because then you can still walk up to somebody and be like, how did you get that? I got it from the dungeon. And you're like, oh my God, that guy's an alpha. I have to go do that dungeon. You know what I mean? Like, you can still get that same feeling.
thing that's floating around. So we'll see if anything comes from that.
I don't know if there's transmog.
One other PvP feature that I think they've done very well is auto translate. I don't know if this was intended as
auto
a
translate
PvP feature, but I'll throw.
China always lose, Olympics lose, Taiwan lose, Bloodstone, LOL. Bro, I can't wait. I cannot wait for the chat PvP, bro. This shit is gonna hit. I miss chat PvP. I miss people trying to tell me to go get a job at Subway. You know what I mean? Like, they beat you in PvP and they teabag you while linking the Subway, like www.subway.com/North American careers. Oh, God, so good.
Some of the chat up on the screen from after the tax cart event in Korea. And as you can see, Russians, Koreans, Chinese people, like all these different languages coming together to call each other names. It really is a beautiful thing. All right, now let's get to what I think is by far the game's biggest flaw.
The reason he likes auto translate is because everyone can get together and call each other names. I told you guys, Marlon is one of my favorite content creators.
Which is the early game and the questing slash
I'm
leveling.
crying.
If there is one part of this game that is going to severely hinder its success and cause a lot of people to bounce off of it, it is this leveling process. There's really no way to sugarcoat it. It is one of the most boring leveling processes that I've ever gone through. The story...
I was still having a good time at level 22. He's level 30 in this clip, guys. But I was having a good time at 22, but I would imagine it probably gets a little rough if he's saying
is kind of just a walking simulator, typical soulless, like phoned in leveling experience that we've come to expect from MMOs nowadays for whatever reason.
I would hope that the leveling experience at least forces me to go explore the world. That's what I really want out of my leveling experience. I think that no matter what, it's probably going to be monotonous and stuff. Number up, good. Sure, yeah, the number goes up. But like, as long as it forces me to interact with the world and like go explore new places, I'm probably going to be okay with it. Forces you to run through the world. I don't know about explore though. Okay, well, that's reasonable, right? Like, it's doing its job. That's what leveling in MMOs is for. It's forcing you or gives you more incentive to go out and just like look right. Hey, what's over there? You know what I mean?
You know, it feels like we're in this death spiral right now where players complain about the leveling process being boring, and so developers try to condense it more and more, but then that just makes it even more boring because, you know, you don't have a chance to get invested in the characters. You don't have a chance to get invested in any of the zones.
Yeah. The solution to making the leveling process good is not to make it shorter. The problem with making it shorter, as I just said, the leveling process's job is to force you to go out and explore the world, okay? Or interact with the world in a way that you probably wouldn't have done before if you didn't have to level up, okay? If you're not interacting with the world, you have no reason to go over there and kill those mobs. You have no reason to go over there and do that quest. You have no reason to go over there. It gives you incentive to do these things, right? And in an MMO, in a fantasy setting, believe it or not, that's what people want to do. People want to go out and like explore a huge world, kind of like Skyrim gave them that nostalgic feeling back in the day.
You're blasting
or World of Warcraft. Look how big the world is.
Through from one zone to the next. It's, you know, half the quests are just walking from one destination to the next because you're going through everything so quickly and you're going to new areas so often. And I don't, something has just gone severely wrong with the entire leveling and story quest process in MMOs. I honestly think that we should just stop doing main story quests in MMOs, or if you're going to have one, you have to find a way to integrate that story into the same gameplay loops that the player is going to be experiencing in endgame. Like, there shouldn't be game A that happens for the first X amount of hours and then game B that happens once you're max level. It should all be the same game, and it should be fun and addictive at level 1. This game will not addict you at level 1. Level 1 will be a boring slog that you have to get through in order to get to the good part. And you know, it's a meme at this point to say like it gets good after X number of hours, but that is the case here.
It is
the first 5 to 10 hours of the game are just not going to be fun, and if you want to experience Throne, you're going to have to slog through those until you get to the good part.
So I don't mind having fun. Like the first 5 to 10 hours, I had a good time. That means, bro, I need to buckle up. Oh, my dick's getting hard just thinking about it.
Some people have said that they like the story and they like the cutscenes. And I mean, I will say the production.
The story was okay. I would give the story a 4 out of 10. If Black Desert is a 1 out of 10, I would give Throne of Liberty's story so far a 4 out of 10.
Value is very solid. Like the cutscenes are cool visually.
I haven't gotten through the whole thing though.
But the story itself is really forgettable. You know, you just don't really get sucked into the characters. All the good guys are like, you know, we must save the children, and all the bad guys are like,
yeah, like,
how dare you interrupt my evil plans? And then they like laugh maniacally, and it's, I don't know, it's all just kind of like very Disney and plain, and
yeah, and that's shitty, but at least it's not Elezra again? No way. I'm so tired of that bitch.
So I don't think that most people will experience the story in a positive light, but a few of you, I'm sure, will enjoy the 5 or 10 hours of leveling, and you'll take your time and you'll actually read the lore, and that's great for you. But 95% of people, I think, are just going to be bored out of their mind.
Best part of the story for Throne and Liberty, and the reason I think it actually does it better, is not because the storyline itself is better. It's because you can speed run, you can skip every cutscene, and you can speed run all the dialogue. But the narrator gives you the footnotes after you do that. So like, you don't feel lost on what is exactly happening. What's happening is admittedly boring, but the narrator is keeping you up to date with what's kind of going on as you run mindlessly to the next quest. That feels good. And for the people that want to sit there and enjoy the lore and enjoy the rich story or whatever, you know, like, they can do that. But for the rest of us who don't give a shit about the story very much and are playing the game for other reasons, we can speed through it and still have a vague idea of what's happening. Also, when you interact with like the waypoints, like it gives you like a brief synopsis. Is like, hey, this is why these people are here. This is why this outpost exists. This is why this temple is here. And this is, you know, like, boom. And now you have a better understanding of why things are the way they are in the world. Even if you don't necessarily care a whole lot, just a brief little thing like that, I think it adds to the game.
The puzzles in this game are like beyond game journalist difficulty. They're like, I don't even know what to call it. It's like 6-year-old difficulty. Like they're unfailably dumb, and you know,
game journalist difficulty.
Like, this could be interesting. These puzzles where you have to kind of like look at the item and find.
I just watched a video on IGN this morning and how bullshit their game journalists and how terrible they are at video games. That's a bar. Yep. It is. You have like, you know, 6-year-olds. And then like just above that, you have like game journalists. You know what I mean? Like,
find little clues. Like this could be a cool little mini game.
I don't like this very much. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, he's right though. It could be better designed. It's like, why am I looking at this?
But instead, it's like, it's just so blatantly obvious what you're supposed to do. I mean, you don't even have to read the objective. You can just mouse your cursor over the thing, and when your cursor changes, that's where you're supposed to click. Like there's no...
Wait, that's exactly what I do.
So you don't have to put any thought into it whatsoever. Here's another section where like I have different dialogue choices that I'm supposed to make, but they're just all the same choice. Like, so I don't know. There's one quest where it's like you have to pick the right plants, and the quest objective is like pick up the mandrake root, and the other plants are
I did that one.
Mandrake roots. They're like, you know, slimy mushroom or something. And so it's like, oh man, which one do I pick? I don't know. Like these, there could be, the questing could involve like actual puzzles. It could involve like actual scavenger hunts, or something like that. But
bro, for once we could take a note out of the gacha gaming universe, bro. Like straight up, Wuthering Waves. Puzzles are reasonably challenging without being too difficult.
But they just don't. They're just like so stale and dumb and easy. And like when you...
Guys, I have good news. The Black Desert patch is live. We're good, boys.
Already know what's happening, or like you already know where to click. It's not...
New for 4 hours, guys.
At that point, you're kind of just going through the motions. And it's hard for me to... It's really hard for me to understand how we've gotten to this point.
Somebody go into Fake Uni's chat and remind him that Zarka spawns in an hour.
I think it's going to be kind of like a Final Fantasy 14 situation eventually, where the community is just going to have to explain to people, like, if you can slog through the first part, it gets better. And luckily, the slog in this game is a lot shorter than it is in Final Fantasy 14. Some other problems with the new player experience, there are way too many menus. Like when you first get into the game, there's not quite as many of these on the NA launch as there are in Korea.
I'll be honest, I thought this was fun. I like the way they laid it out, and I was able to pick it up really quickly. I had to get my character ready in an hour. I knew nothing about Throne and Liberty. I just knew which weapons I kind of wanted to pick. I went in and was able to set up all of my presets, get my UI ready, and all of this stuff, like skill specializations, everything, in an hour. And that tells me that this is at least doing its job.
Yeah, I think they've trimmed it a little bit, but
too many menus is stupid text. No, it's a fair complaint. Naraka Blade Point has too many menus, too many events, too many plus signs. It's really annoying. So like that's my standard for really annoying menus. Throne and Liberty I don't think is really that bad.
It's still like way too many. You've got the battle pass and all this other stuff, which is just stupid, and you know it all lights up in red, and oh, my dopamine, there's a red button to click, and you know, like the stuff that we've all come to hate and yet is still being shoved down our throats, unfortunately exists in this game as well. Although
I hate the plus buttons. In time I will come to hate this little diamond symbol. I hate the red plus buttons. Like in Overwatch, they finally added a remove plus button thing. They need that for Naraka.
I will say it could be a lot worse. And then the last thing that I think is really going to cause people to bounce off the game is that there's just so many noob traps in the beginning. Like there's so many stats that you have to understand, and if you don't understand them, it's really easy to make mistakes, and then it's really difficult to recover from those mistakes.
Really?
So like if I level up the wrong gear,
your character's kind of a bitch.
It's not easy to like go out and get different gear. I mean, the levels of the gear transfer over, but the traits and other forms of progress that you're aiming for don't. Like there's not an easy way to correct those. So there are a lot of ways to mess up as a new player, which pretty much forces you to have to follow a guide, which I just think is boring. Like the stats and the builds in the game should be intuitive enough to where you can find a build that works for you without being forced to go and research or follow a guide that someone who's already played for 200 hours has put together for you. I just think a lot of it.
I don't know. I feel like you're hurting Chris Polly's bottom line here. There's a lot of content creators that literally make their living off of making guides. I think that, I don't know. I think that it being complex enough to require a guide is part of what draws a lot of MMO players in. I think that MMO players want that rich experience. He's right, though. It does need to be simple enough that you can grasp it at like a fundamental level, and then when you start playing the game, you want one build path, right? And then as you put hours into the game, it's a very delicate situation, but you want to have options, right? And then by the time you reach 500 hours, you should be familiar enough with the game systems that you're okay with choosing between 7 to 10 options, right? And if you don't present this correctly, it will drive a lot of players from the game. He's absolutely right. In Black Desert, we have the opposite problem, where you have so many different ways that you can up the start of your build. We can still have players build Grunil armor and Azula weapon, Azula accessories, and all kinds of crazy shit, and just Black Star armor. What are we talking about, right? But ultimately, you end up in the end game where you only build Deboreka accessories, you're only building Dead God armor, and you're only building Sovereign weapons, and that's the only choice for any class. That is completely, and that is the wrong way, right? It's the wrong way. But hopefully, Throne and Liberty at least, starts relatively simple and starts to branch out in complexity as it goes. I didn't get too much into the build, so I'll admit I don't know. I'm just gonna trust Marlon on this one.
Is too convoluted and not going to feel accessible or immersive to a new player. There's some other things that I have to bring up that I don't. Maybe this is just a pet peeve of mine, but I don't know why in these Korean games every female character has heals in every scenario. I'm walking through this ancient ruined dungeon in high heel. I don't know. Is that just me? I just think it's so dumb.
Very simple solution. Play a male character. Females have heels for obvious reasons. You know the reason. I know the reason. Everybody knows the reason. Okay. Like, girls look hot in heels. All right. That's just the way that it goes. I don't know why, but they're attractive. Okay. And because they're attractive in heels, that sells. Sex sells. Guys want to look at an attractive female character. They don't give a f if she's walking through the grass. They want her in her heels. All right. It is what it is. All right. You don't want to wear heels, play a male character.
But other parts of the game, the immersion is actually extremely good. There's a giant whale that you can ride. Sorry if that is kind of a spoiler, but like this.
Hercules POV, guys.
This is a taxi that takes you to a part of the game where you can unlock a waypoint that you can only get if you ride this whale. And I don't know, I just think that like the experience of doing this for the first time and uncovering the island that it takes you to is super fun. When you get down into some of the deeper dungeons for the first time, those environments are really immersive. There are a lot of just cool features of the game, like there's a dungeon that only opens when it rains. And then there is an ability.
Guys, I just want to say that the fact that I have two different types of Black Desert players watching me right now. I have the Black Desert players that are so desperate for a new MMO that they're trying Throne and Liberty and they're hoping to God that it's going to be good and everyone's really hyped about it. And then there's the Black Desert players who's like, I'm not leaving. Right? And then everything that Throne and Liberty does is just dog shit. It's a terrible game, and they're constantly just throwing monkey shit at each other in my chat. I love that we have this dynamic going on right now. I love both of you guys.
That's you can get if you're the player with the most activity or something like that, where you can make it rain like on a set cooldown, so you can force that dungeon to open and you can be like that guy who's in control of it, and if you don't do it, then people just have to wait for it to rain naturally. You know, there's a dungeon that closes at nighttime, and so since the dungeon is PvP at nighttime, once you are in there after it closes, if you die, you cannot get back in until daytime. And so that kind of like drives the stakes for PvP in that dungeon way up. The other dungeons don't have that feature, so if you die, you can come back in, so that's a little bit more forgiving. But then, you know, there's the one dungeon where you get locked out. There are also a lot of cool jump puzzles and environmental puzzles. This is a part of the game that feels like it has a decent start.
I hate jump puzzles. I hate jump puzzles,
way more potential that it could reach. There's some side quests and stuff where some of the like scavenger hunts and jump puzzles are pretty interesting. There's a system called Mystic Keys where you spend your contract coins to get these keys, and then they give you really good rewards. And the way you spend the keys is by finding these hidden like nodes throughout the game. And
I like puzzles. I just don't like jump puzzles.
On top of a really tall building, you have to figure out how to get up there, or you have to like find another high point and fly there. You might have to manage your stamina when you're flying, so you have to like do a vertical jump at just the right time, or you have to sprint at just the right time. And a lot of these are like were genuinely fun to figure out, but some of them are also just kind of like tedious and feel like unfinished or kind of just like thrown together very quickly. So I think there's a lot more that can be done with the environment and with the grappling hook system and with the flying.
That can be improved.
There's a decent start to it as well. So now that we've kind of eviscerated the game and gone through the parts of it that I dislike the most, let's talk about the part of the game that actually gives me the most optimism for the future, which is the rate and quality of the updates, as well as the quality of the communication.
Yeah, how often do they update? Is it once a month or once a week?
That we've been getting from the devs. So most MMO communication
Please be good.
Marketing and PR.
Yeah.
And it's always very kind of like flat, and they never really say anything that matters. That is not the case with Throne of Liberty. The communication that we've gotten from the devs, if you go and like read the patch notes and you read the descriptions of why there's a change, or if you look at the roadmap, which we'll take a look at in a second, like the comments are clearly very thoughtful. They're clearly coming from people who play MMOs and like MMOs and are listening to player feedback and like actually getting to the point of what is being complained about and actually getting to the bottom of those problems rather than just doing band-aids or whatever or treating the symptoms. Like they're actually getting to the root.
Bro, I'm so tired of Jae Kim. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. Thank God. Get me out. I don't want to do it anymore. They don't listen to anyone for any reason, not even the Koreans.
Understanding why
Also, Moreland, Dark Reader, invest.
players dislike something, and then coming up with really good solutions to come up with those problems. And then on top of that, they're doing it really quickly. There's a bunch of stuff that I made notes of throughout my time playing in Korea where I was gonna like complain about this feature, this bug, that bug, whatever. And a ton of those things are just fixed now. They're just fine. So like some examples would be they added a new system called trait resonance, where once you finish upgrading all the traits in your gear, there's this RNG thing where you can roll for another bonus stat, and you would have to roll and roll and roll and roll to get the stat that you wanted. And
Hey guys, low key, if Throne and Liberty, if they're smart about this, if NCSoft is or Amazon is smart about this, they will ninja release the game like 10 minutes before it's supposed to actually launch. That way, not everyone is clicking load at the same time and it doesn't crash the servers.
And it was like really tedious. Sometimes you'd have to roll like dozens of times, you know, to get this like 5% chance that you needed. And then you'd have to do that again on the next piece of gear, the next piece of gear.
No one say anything.
And
that's your benefit for being in Blue Squadron's stream early on.
within like a week or two of all the negative feedback that they got, they just added a solution to where you could pay an additional cost and force the resonance trait on your piece of gear and then be done. So if you wanted to gamble, you could still gamble and you could still get lucky and save resources. But for people who didn't want to spend all this time and headache and tediousness gambling over and over and over again, you could just force the trait and get a little bit of extra resources together and get that done. So there were
people are really paying $40 to play this 5 days early. Holy cow, we are cooked. You guys only spent $40? Bro, I spent like the 100 and whatever the fuck, bro. Like, what are we talking about? What are you, a broke boy? Little poor boy? Go play on October 1st, pussy. We'll see you in 4 days.
a bunch of other things that were similar to that, where it was like tedious or it took too long or there was too much RNG, and then they listened to player feedback, and now those systems all feel like really good and really satisfying to progress through. A lot of little things too, like not being able to vote kick trolls from dungeon runs if you're pugging a dungeon.
I'm gonna be honest, MMOs don't release very often. So when a potentially good MMO does release, you don't want to miss the release, bro. Like being there for an MMO release, from what I understand, this is the first time I've ever done it. I've never gotten to be a part of an MMO release. I'm fairly certain it's a special experience. That's what everyone has told me. And if I gotta spend $40 to get there, yeah, I'm gonna do that. It's not even a question. And the best part is then I get to do it again on October 1st and make fun of all the rest of you for not having gear yet.
Or like someone who goes AFK and you couldn't do anything about it, and then people were like, hey, like these dungeons are getting hard now, we need to take them more seriously, we need to be able to kick people who are screwing around. And then a couple weeks later they added a vote kick system. So they are
Eric,
really
I agree.
good at listening to players and implementing solutions really quickly, like especially within the last couple months. It's been crazy to see what they have been able to do. The roadmap, if we take a look at this, it looks
I read this
fantastic
already
to me.
on
The
my
pacing here is
YouTube, guys.
excellent. There is going to be a ton of stuff happening, while at the same time, it's not such an egregious pace that you have to be like a no life, no job, play all day to keep up. This is a roadmap that's going to be very friendly towards people with jobs, people who are playing kind of casually, people who are...
This is great because I want to do other playthroughs of other MMOs while I'm playing Throne and Liberty very actively. So I want to be able to keep up with TNL while I play Hardcore Classic WoW, while I play Guild Wars 2, while I play Final Fantasy, right?
Free to play, who don't want to spend it all. We'll go into the monetization and the pay to win in a bit, but if you're not a pay to win player, this is a schedule that is going to be very friendly to you. You will be able...
Eric, welcome back for 3 months, buddy. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man.
To compete and keep up even with those whale players because of the content progression here. The major updates they are saying are going to be happening every 3 to 4 months. So, this isn't like every couple of weeks you're going to have to play all day and catch up. Like, you're going to have a solid amount of time to enjoy the content.
So the major updates are every 3 or 4 months, as they said in there. But is there a patch every week, like in Black Desert, that they're like updating things? I find it hard to believe that they're able to fix bugs and like update dungeons and like add all this other stuff without having updates basically every week. What server are you going to be on? I think that pinned comments are useless. Pinned comments in chat are useless because people don't read. I'm on Chernobog. GNL is at top rate sellers on Steam right now. Based. Again, yeah, like I don't really like early access very much because like you got to pay not to get late access. But here's the thing. I'm probably going to put a tremendous amount of time into Throne and Liberty. I'm okay spending, $100 on the game or $40 on the game to play it a few days early. Sure. I don't mind spending a little money on the things that I like doing. Beats the hell out of alcohol or drugs.
To get the gear, to catch up to the whales, to be viable in PvP, and you just to enjoy all that before the next major content patch hits and kind of puts you back on the treadmill. Let's talk about crafting and gathering next.
This is drugs. No, drugs are addictive. They force you to do them for years. They send you through withdrawal symptoms. Am I on drugs?
The gathering is pretty bare bones at the moment. There's not a skill associated with this or anything. You kind of just walk up to a tree or a plant or whatever it is. You press the button, you wait a second, and then you get the reward.
I don't even play Awakening Nova. How can this be possible?
The only part of this that I find kind of enjoyable is that there are some very rare drops you can get in terms of like different morphs or different amatoys that you can only get from gathering. And
I'm pretty sure the life skills in this game suck. Because no one talks about the life skills in Throne and Liberty. They have to suck. There's just no shot.
So you have to get it from like gathering in a certain zone, and I don't know. So I guess there's a bit of a lottery that you can chase with gathering there. But overall, this feels pretty underdeveloped to me. I would like to see an actual gathering skill that you could progress, as
I'll
well
get the
as maybe some
50-90 when it comes
gear,
out.
like a tool or maybe a set of tools. They did recently add a fishing skill, and there are better fishing poles that you can find. So being able to find like a better axe or a better like pickaxe or something that allows you to get better resources, I think would be interesting. Although right now the materials that you get from gathering are fairly basic and their uses are fairly basic, so they probably would need to expand the crafting system as well if they were going to do that. Crafting is also something that's kind of bare bones in Throne right now. You don't really craft in the traditional sense.
So you can't AFK fish? Yeah, it's dead.
Again, there's no crafting skills, so there's like no way to progress that. What you
It looks really cool, in fairness.
do is you go talk.
I'm just not going to want to do this over killing other players, you know what I mean?
NPC in town, and you assemble different items together. But the resources that you're paying for this are more like just a bonus cost. If it's, for example, a piece of gear that you're crafting, there's something called a lithograph that you're going to need to get that piece of gear. And once you have the lithograph, you basically have the piece made. The crafting resources are not really enabling you to do that. They're more like just an extra fee that you have to pay in order to get the item made. Like these are all just generic resources. There's nothing about these that really allows you to suddenly craft, Hell's Gale Blade, if that's what you want to make. It's really the lithograph here that is the bottleneck, and the rest of this is kind of just resources.
So how do you get the lithographs? Dungeons and stuff?
The crafting and gathering, I hope in the future it will receive some sort of significant update where crafting is more interesting. Right now, all these items, these are...
What are the recs to join your guild? So you can't have a girlfriend or a job. Okay. You have to be logged in all the time. And when you go to sleep, you need to have an Apple earpod in your ear so that when I ping you for a GVG, you're here. You understand? You don't go to sleep without a earpod in your ear. Doesn't have to be Apple as long as it works.
These aren't like craftable only items. These are just the regular
Can't have a boyfriend either, unless he's also in the guild.
weapons that you would get from dungeons or other parts of the game.
In which case, keep it civil.
But the lithograph is another way that you can obtain that item. So there's nothing really special about crafting right now. I do think...
What if my girlfriend's in the guild? Your girlfriend won't be in the guild.
that there is enough of an infrastructure here to where crafting and gathering could be added as progressible skills and could be a significant part of the game in the future, but I don't know if there is any kind of roadmap or promise for that to happen. The skills that you can progress right now are fishing, cooking, and expeditions. And all of these things are very new, and they still feel very new. Like they all feel like they have only been worked on for a month or two, probably because they did only work on them for a month or two. I don't think these systems are amazing, but again, I do think it's a solid foundation considering these are just things that got added to the game like last month.
I'm actually curious. I was hoping he would say this. Morlin, if you're still here, can you tell me, do you think that Throne and Liberty will be a better game long term than New World was, based on how it's starting in the West, in your opinion?
There's a lot more that they can do.
You played a lot of New World. I'm curious how you would compare it. You were really hyped about that. You played a lot of it. Like,
the fishing is, it's simple enough. The mini game is fine. There's a little bit of skill to it, but it's still pretty relaxing. The expeditions, you collect these amatoys throughout the game, and then you can send them out on missions to get you.
He might not be here anymore.
Resources, and this is going to be like one of the primary ways that you get materials for cooking, or some of those materials that you need to slam together if you do craft an item in town. And so this system right here feels very unfinished. Some of the numbers don't really make sense. Like there are some of these areas where just strategically they would never be a viable option, and a lot of the rewards that you get are kind of repetitive from zone to zone.
What the even is this? Is the expedition system? Oh, this is the worker thing for your pets. It's basically your worker empire, but you send pets in this game instead.
I again would expect that in the future he's
not here. I can add him, so he's here, but he's probably
get some kind of overhaul or some sort of extensive fleshing out. But it's kind of all of these life skills I think right now are in a state where it's like, okay, we've got something going. It works well enough. Is it going to be the main thing that like keeps you interested in the game? No, but it's nice little bonus. It's a nice little thing to do to break up the PvP or break up your dungeon runs or whatever. I don't think that the fishing or the cooking or the expeditions are going to be something that like really hooks a lot of people, but they serve as a nice bonus.
Brats, there's 2 new YouTube videos every day. Check it out.
And I do think that they have a lot of potential to expand in the future. Okay, now we come to everyone's favorite part of the discussion, monetization. Woo! This is the cash shop in all its glory, and look at all the costumes and the pretty...
I wish that BDO's cash shop was more like this. I would way rather have all these like cosmetics and all this other shit, you know what I mean? Like, then focus on... Hey, we should make our entire progression system require cron stones and then sell the cron stones for IRL dollars.
Birdie.
And that will be primarily how we make money.
And the stuffed animals and the sewing thread. So many things you can buy here. You can actually buy this with gold. That's not even real money. Look at them. But yeah, this is mostly cosmetics. Honestly, a lot of the stuff that you see in here isn't actually going to affect gameplay. Some of these things like the morphs and the pets will give you a very, very tiny bonus to those dimensions of the game, but you can...
Is it worth playing if I have no interest in PvP? I don't think he actually goes through that, but so I will answer that question. I think that it absolutely is, mainly because it is free to play, so it costs you nothing beyond October 1st. Okay, and if you're a PvE player, give it a go. I heard the dungeons are incredible, and you can do them when you're not forced to PvP. I heard that the PvE content, he said this is the best PvE content I've done in pretty much any MMO. So like, PvE content's probably really good. The life skills, I don't get the idea that the life skills are very good. So like, if you're a life skiller, yeah. Yeah, you want the video link? I'll link it again at the end here. But here's the video here.
can also get those bonuses just through regular gameplay and through unlocking the pets and the morphs that you get as a free-to-play player. So nothing here is mandatory. There is a battle pass, and I think most people are probably going to want to buy this. I'm guessing it's going to be, like $15 or something.
Is it worth it?
And it's just this whole bottom row here is all going to be resources you can get. Is this make or break? Is this like such a huge amount of resources that you have to buy the battle pass? No. And, as a free-to-play player, if you don't buy this, you certainly can just play a little bit extra and catch up. This isn't.
Is Guild Wars 2 still has the best PvE? I'm hoping so, because I'm on a Guild Wars 2 run through for the very first time. Currently, like amount. I'm hoping that Guild Wars 2 PvE is really good.
Resources or anything, but the most egregious part of the monetization, which squarely lands this game in the pay-to-win category, is the auction house itself. So the auction house is completely driven by a currency called Lucent. Every single item that is bought and sold on the auction house is bought and sold with Lucent, and you can purchase Lucent with real money. So all these items can be directly purchased with real money, in other words. By any definition, that makes the game pay to win. The question is, if you're not going to pay to win, if you're a free-to-play player, how far behind are you? How much is this going to affect your ability to enjoy the game? What it really comes down to is there are several different ways you're progressing your character. You need traits, you need gear, you need to level up that gear, you need runes.
Dude, what no one will tell me, but I'm going to get an idea of really quick. There's a pay-to-win line, right? How much money do you have to pay to skip an hour of gameplay? Right? If that number is too high, people won't really pay to win, and pay to win will kind of just be a non-factor, right? In Black Desert, you have to spend about $25 to $30 or grind for 1 hour. Right? That's usually how it works. And the vast majority of players are not going to do that when your upgrades cost thousands of hours of gameplay, right? It's rough. About $500 for a BIS gear set. Okay, well, how long does the BIS gear set take you to get in game then? Like, I want to know the per hour ratio. Can I go out, if I go out and play the game actively for an hour, how much money would I have to spend to do that instead, just through spending money? Right? If that number is too low, I can either spend $5 or grind for an hour, well, then pay to win is a much larger factor in Throne and Liberty. Because see, then everyone can do it. And it's not good. It will kill the game. Right? So I'm wondering where this line is. You know what I mean?
You need several different things to get stronger, and some of those things
you can't convert money to power constantly like you do in BDO. Your pay to win hits a ceiling in Throne. Okay, well, that's good. Morland, I had a question earlier and you haven't addressed it yet. You played a lot of New World on launch, and you were really big into it and played a lot of it, but as we all know, New World's kind of dead now. It's not kind of dead, it's super dead. Do you think that based on how Throne and Liberty is releasing and how you felt with New World, do you feel better about Throne and Liberty surviving longer into the future than the longevity that New World had? Just genuinely curious.
Things you'll be able to buy off the market, and some of them will not. Just as a broad ballpark, I would say probably about a third of your character's power can be purchased with
kind of just based on your feeling of New World when it launched versus your feeling of New World when Throne and Liberty's launching.
Life money. The rest of it,
he addresses it in the coming minutes. Okay, well,
you have to actually play the game. You have to actually grind.
Anubis, welcome back for 4 months. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Whatever the mechanism is that you acquire that form of progression,
No World.
You cannot just pay money and skip that, except for that 1/3 of your character progression, which mainly comes down to traits. I would say the traits on your gear is going to be the biggest pay to win thing that whales have access to. Now, when it comes to something like buying traits, the amount of traits that you have on your gear is limited. So it's not like whales can just keep buying more and more traits forever and always be stronger. They're going to cap out their gear, and that cap can be reached by a free-to-play player. So effectively, they can't just spend more money and always be ahead. They can be ahead at the beginning of a content release.
Riven, thanks for the prime sub, buddy.
As a free-to-play player, you will catch up to them, and you'll be able to play a substantial portion of that content release and be the same level of power as a whale would be. So we've already talked about how content releases are going to be 3 to 4 4 months apart. You're really only going to feel the gap between free to play and whales in the first month of those. Really, in the first like couple weeks, you'll probably feel it the most. But eventually, even as a free to play player, even as a free to play and kind of casual player, if you are smart and you know what to do, you will be able to catch up and progress just fine, and you'll be able to hit those same caps that the whales are hitting. The one potential exception to this is with arc boss weapons. I don't know how to say it. And these are much less pay to win and more guild to win. So 99% of people who have an arc boss weapon got it from their guilds. There are going to be a handful of people who purchase these off the market, but honestly, they just don't appear on the market very often. And when they do, they're extremely expensive. So there aren't a ton of whales.
It's like boss weapons when BDO launched.
Going around buying these high-end weapons and then dunking on everybody. Usually it is the most powerful guilds that have access to these weapons and hoard them, and then every once in a while one of these weapons will show up on the market and a whale will buy it. But the odds that you're going to encounter that person out in the world or during an event or something are probably not going to be that high.
Okay.
On the Hyper Boost server, we all knew who the top whales were.
That will change. I'll be honest with you, that will change. As gear becomes more available to people, the pay to win will become more of an issue, but then everyone will also have the weapons then, so like it'll still be a non-factor. So
and honestly, they weren't really relevant when it came to PvP. They didn't have the organization, they didn't have the player skill, like they didn't have all the other things that go
Ethereum's
into
just rolling this boss,
making you a competitive player or a competitive guild. This is not a game where you can just buy your way to the top. You still have to do all the other things. You still have to have the skill. You still have to have the guildies and everything else. So while the pay to win is certainly there, and I'm not interested in defending it, I will say, as someone who did not spend a single dime on Korea, I did feel competitive. I did really well in Arena. I had a lot of fun playing with my guild. I mattered in Siege. I had a really strong KDA in Siege, and all that was without spending a single dime. So you can absolutely enjoy this game as a free-to-play player. Plenty of people who have played in Korea, you can ask them that, and I think that they will agree. That will not keep you from being annoyed when you are upgrading your traits and in the back of your mind you could just pull out your credit card and just skip that whole process. It is very aggravating, and it does cheapen the progress that you make, knowing that that option is there. But it is what it is, and at the end,
pay to win is genuinely a good thing. Without it, people are able to blame balance for their losses. Oh, sweetie, I'm concerned that you were not joking when you said that. Please tell me that you were joking. Please tell me that was a joke. I need to make sure that that was a joke.
End of the day, I've said it already, but as a free-to-play player, I absolutely do think you can and will enjoy progressing in this game. So summarizing everything, my predictions for this game, I do not think that the launch will be as big as Lost Ark or New World, but I also do not think that this game will fall off post-launch nearly as hard as those games did. Most of the
There it is.
The fall off for Throne and Liberty is going to happen very fast at the very beginning as people bounce off the terrible leveling and questing system. However, after that, I do think the game will stabilize and potentially.
I think he was immediately wrong about it not being as large as the Lost Ark Lounge. It's number 3 on Steam right now. This shit is crazy.
Even grow slowly over time as new updates are added. They have definitely won over me.
Lost Ark was number 1. Okay. Well, honestly, it kind of depends because, like, right now, who's number 1 right now? What's number 1 on Steam right now? What was Lost Ark competing with? Yeah, at 1 million. FIFA. Okay. Like. CS, of course. Okay, well, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right.
With recent,
we'll see. We'll see what the numbers are. He could be right. He could be right.
And I think as kind of word gets out and people experience the new content, and as the quality of the game continues to increase,
New World ended up being a terrible game.
If they can keep up this pace that they've demonstrated in the last few months, if they can keep that momentum going, then I do think that the game will slowly grow over time as word gets out about how good it is. The game genuinely does get better the more you play it, and the updates have been rapidly increasing in both quality and quantity. The only explanation I have for what a 180 this game has done is there must have been some sort of change in leadership, because I mean it has been, so much has happened in such a short amount.
Bro, I remember when I saw the beta in Korea and I was like, yeah, this is an L game. We're all gonna meme on this. I couldn't wait to play it because I was just gonna shit on it, because there was like auto grinding. You could just like walk away and AFK grind and whatnot. Now it's like, oh shit.
Time. It's really is just a completely different game. So I think they've got some different people at the wheel now, and I think that is going to continue. I think that is going to really continue improving the game. MMO devs are always, of course, capable of ruining a good thing, but this is one of the first, or
tell me about it.
Not one of the first, but one of the few games that I have seen that genuinely seems like it is on the right track post-launch and getting better post-launch instead of worse.
The most promising thing, guys, is that the developers just listen to all the feedback.
And so I do think the game has a chance to continue saving itself and become a stable long-term title for years to come. So I hope that continues to happen. I will definitely be playing hard on launch. I will be doing a subathon if that's something you're interested in doing or seeing. You can check me out over on Twitch. If the subathon, if you guys keep me on long enough, it's totally uncapped. So I'll eat on stream, I'll sleep on stream. We'll do the longest one I ever did was 110 hours for Elden Ring. So I don't know if we'll break that record for Throne, but I'm
He's not live yet, guys, but you should absolutely support him. He's not live yet, but I assume he's not live yet because he knows that what we're about to... People are saying, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. That we'll be logged in the next 2 hours, bro. And he knows because he's an adult and he's been through this before. So, like... but, like, you guys need to go give him a follow over on his Twitch right now. So I give him a shout out. I'll be on right at 10. Yeah, that's what I figured.
I'm down for it if you guys want to check that out. I'll also continue to post video guides for this, kind of like I did for
collab. I think that I was thinking that, like, if Throne of Liberty goes well, that I would put on a podcast for it, kind of like the old Moon podcast for BDO. And I think that Moreland being on that podcast would be incredible. But, like, I'll have to see if he's interested.
New World and BDOs. Those of you who know me from those games, you know that my guides are always absolutely the best guides that exist for whatever game it is.
This guy writes, when Moreland makes a guide, it's the Bible. Moreland doesn't make bad content. Okay? I'm just telling you that right now. Go interact with the video. Give it a thumbs up. Go subscribe to Moreland. He's an OG of Black Desert Online. Now he's going to play now he's going to play Throne of Liberty. He played New World before as well. Like, yeah, he's a goat.